your own like demiurgic prison.
Yeah. So I don't know. Hello.
Welcome back to Mystic and the Machine. Let us know if you can hear us in the chat and if everything is speed audio wise.
They can. I can see it.
Okay.
So don't worry about
All right.
it. It's almost like
Just
you don't.
making sure.
It's almost like you don't trust me to do my fucking job, bro. Come on.
Oh my god, it's like
Come on.
it's like asking for directions or whatever. But yeah, welcome back. I see in the chat someone asked about the Singapore Airlines
How brave of you
catastrophe.
to think that I fucking watch the news or like keep up to date with current
well,
events.
I do. And I tried to tell Jake about it this
All
afternoon.
right, give me the lowdown then.
And he wasn't having any of it at
why
all.
should I care?
Well, because it happened here in
In
it was
England, where did
leaving-
it crash in England?
It was leaving from Heathrow Airport,
And it crashed where?
and it didn't crash. They hit really heavy turbulence at like 30 odd thousand feet, and then they dropped about 6,000 feet, which injured 31 people, I believe, and one person died.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
But why is it anything to do?
because I'm pretty sure that the safety shit should have been checked here, or I'm sure they were corresponding with the radar system. They
sounds
should have been
like
able
the
to
Singapore
see.
Airlines thing. It doesn't sound like anything
I
to do.
think you're really defensive about England right now, but everything's a shit show here. Like there's sewage in our like beautiful like oceans. There's
beautiful oceans.
yeah,
I don't know if we've got beautiful oceans.
The-
I mean, they look pretty, but they're fucking cold and
Well,
pretty nasty.
They're dumping sewage in them now. There's also been a bug going around. There's people in certain parts of England that have been warned to boil their water before drinking it because there's like some weird Victorian like dysentery bug going around. There's all sorts of things, corruption, like it's pretty shambolic here. So this was like insult to injury, and I think British people are taking it very personally that a flight from here with a bunch of British passengers on it, like you
Again,
know.
Singapore Airlines. if it was British Airways,
so
all right,
defensive right now.
I'd be like, oh my god, we're really dropping the fucking ball here, boys. But Singapore Airlines,
It's still embarrassing.
sort your shit out and stop making us look bad. Okay, is basically I think the bottom line on that one.
Yeah, it was a Boeing airplane. Someone just asked. It was a Boeing airplane.
Maybe the pilot was dodging fucking UFOs, dude, and had to make a emergency
quick dive.
maneuver, and that's why it was nothing to do with Boeing, and they're now wrapped up in this as well.
He said third world sanitary. Yeah, we're having third world issues here in the UK.
I'm not really sure what the situation is with the water. Again, it's bold of you to assume that I read the news, but I don't know. I've just been in a jungle hole for the last week, and it's all paid off because I was participating in a beat battle, which I've never done, on Sunday, and I won, and that was what I played for you at the little beginning in the prelude before the stream started. And the idea was that everybody gets the same sample, and then you have to go away for 2 hours and submit a track. Yeah, I did that with this weird clangy fucking like pipe sound, and made a cool little instrument like extra percussion thing out of it, and made that jungle track, and that's what I did.
You're also going to a stag do this weekend as well.
Yeah.
A bachelor party for the Americans.
Yeah, which I was sort of like, I was trying to like think about like what is a stag do and what would I want my stag do to be like, because it's getting to the weekend now, and like all my cousins and like their mates and my brothers are all piping up in the chat, in the WhatsApp chat, about like, oh, let's get a giant human condom costume to put on my cousin as we go drinking, and it's sort of like, why is it like, is it funny? Like, is it that funny past like the first 5 minutes when you all see each other and you see him for the first time and you're like, oh, what a dickhead. Like, I don't know. And is it just sort of like the idea of stag, isn't it sort of like the last night that you can like show any kind of masculinity or something? Is this sort of like how people have now built it up in their head?
I don't know. It's
Like,
weird to me. I find it an odd tradition.
Why wouldn't you just go to a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really sorry, but like, why wouldn't you just? That would be what I would do. I would go to somewhere like an unforgettable restaurant, and I'd have really nice fucking wine and drinks. Everybody, but you can actually chat and fucking like, have an evening together. If it's just sort of like, oh, so we'll just go and get horrendously drunk for 2 days and do loads of like typically manly things. It's like, okay. I mean, I don't know.
I'm the same because I'm not.
What does if you got invited to a hen do? How would you feel about that?
I'm not a girl's girl.
And like
so.
how would you cope with having to deal with the situation?
I'm not a girl's girl. I'm an introvert. When I did the Jungian personality testing, I got the like one that's like rare for women. Because it's like mostly males fall into that category. So I really can't do the whole like gaggle of hens thing very often. Sometimes it's fun and refreshing and life affirming, but I'm a pretty.
But would you want like the dick cakes and like the dick straws?
No.
Because it's the last time you'll ever see a penis. Is this like the same idea for ladies, like with a hen night? Like this,
I don't know.
You're not going to see that many
understand
penises anymore.
I really don't understand
here's
it.
like everything penis themed.
I really don't understand. I mean, maybe it's like a hangover from ancient fertility rites. You give the penis-shaped cake to kind of wish fertility on the person or something. Maybe it's something to do with that, but like it's just not me. I don't
think it has anything to do with fertility. I think that a lot of this like hen do stag do shit is like quite like a modern like Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. It was like a thing made by a fucking company to sell you shit.
Yeah. But there's been worse like ancient traditions, like the bedding ceremony in Game of Thrones. That was actually a real thing.
It was kind of part of what the Peasants' Revolt was about 700 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
I would rather do a hen do than have like everyone carry you naked to your marriage bed. That's like super humiliating. But yeah, it's not me. I would rather like do like a spa day or just do something self-indulgent rather than like have a bunch
Oh
of
no,
wank.
see, I'm totally fucking wrong. It's not a Hallmark thing. It is an ancient thing.
Oh really?
Yeah, evidence suggests it first came about in the 5th century in Sparta, where military comrades would feast and toast one another on the eve of a friend's wedding. You see, now that sounds closer, way closer to what I just suggested. It does not sound like dressing your mate up like some kind
condom.
of phallic object and trouncing him around town.
Yeah.
Like that, it does not sound like that at all.
I mean, it depends on the type of friends you have as well and the sort of thing. And your brothers are really like, I don't know. Why is American Pie laddish?
Why is lads'
guys.
culture like got like down to that? Like I feel like that's it's so stupid.
Do you think lad culture needs an update?
Yeah, massively.
It hasn't been updated since the noughties.
Why isn't dude stuff cool?
I don't know. I'm
like
really
isn't playing poker and fucking like there's a whole bunch of cool shit.
I don't know. Guys seem kind of like liberal and like lame these days. I think they're like afraid to do anything that's like high risk or like I don't know that could possibly involve like any sort of repercussions or whatever. So yeah, dressing up as a condom or whatever, it's like, oh, that's enough risk there. But when it comes to, I don't know, playing poker or going on like a road trip somewhere crazy or, you know, drinking or whatever, no one's really doing that shit anymore. Which I don't think
about. I'm not saying I'm not saying a Spartan bachelor party would be tame, Amadan. I'm saying it would totally be raucous.
It'd probably be a lot of
it'd be a raucous meal. It would be fantastic. But the word feast is in there of merriment and feast, not necessarily like a pub crawl and just like imagine just I don't know. Americans probably can't imagine drinking the amount that British stag do's drink.
It's ridiculous. It's actually, and that's why I feel sorry for you because you're gonna have to keep up with your brothers, and we're stoners. Like we don't drink that much.
I might just be the absolute renegade of the group and just like pop an E like in the early evening, and then
just do it,
and then no one will bother trying to offer me anything because I was like, you're all pussies. I'm fucking having a great time. Fuck you lot.
Just do that instead.
But then I would. But then if I get fucking turned away going in somewhere because my eyes are fucking pingers, that's going to be really embarrassing and that's going to suck.
I don't know. For me, if I was gonna throw a bachelorette party, it would probably be like a spa day, or I don't know, something like going a trip to Versailles. That would be wonderful. We could all pretend to be princesses, like something along those lines. But then,
But you wouldn't do the vulgar thing and get like a stripper to like
No.
wiggle his cock in your face.
No.
You wouldn't go to like a Magic Mike show.
no,
Or
no.
like something along those lines.
Absolutely, that's not my version of horny. I feel like everyone has their version of horny, and that's definitely not mine. Did someone say eyes wide shut bachelorette party?
Bachelor party turns eyed wide shut. There you go.
That'd be fun. That'd be pretty cool. Versailles would be cool, but all the things I said is stuff I would just want to do on my own. Like I wouldn't want, because girls' vacations notoriously go south, because women, like to argue, all of that stuff. So like I would rather go to Versailles alone, or do a spa day alone and just like indulge myself and like pamper myself. That's my ideal bachelorette party.
I think it's also such a I don't know, maybe it's just the context of like our relationship specifically, but like that, like even it says it in this article as well. It's also sometimes known as the last night of freedom, and like this, isn't that like a really like wouldn't you have like a really unhealthy image of your to-be wife if you think that it's like your last night?
How many people have you sucked
freedom?
and fucked on your bachelorette party? Like all you're thinking about at the altar is how many.
I feel like that just
people are your
spells
partners.
absolute disaster. If that's kind of even the mental framework you're like entering
people
marriage
do
in.
stuff. People go like paragliding and do like sports ball activities with their friends. I don't know. Anything that's to your taste, I guess, is what you should do. But the sort of typical cheesy penis cake party, I think that needs to be done away with for good.
Yeah, and even still, there we go. It used to be and for one night you would go out, and now it's a weekend.
Yeah, now it's getting more elaborate.
And maybe
it's
this
like
is
Kardashian culture.
Maybe this is where I kind of thought that it wasn't some ancient Spartan tradition, and that they were just trying to milk you for everything you got. Because like, why is it now 2 days? Like, I feel like it's all just getting a little bit too much.
I agree. It's an imposition. I'm joking. But yeah, anyway, let's move into our first topic of the day. We're just gonna share our screen. So we haven't done a lot of tech talk recently, so we thought we might as well dive into it today. And yeah, recent news: Scarlett Johansson told OpenAI not to use her voice, and they might have anyway. So there's been a new version, obviously, of ChatGPT out, ChatGPT 4, and it has all these new features. Jake tried to show it his penis the other day because it can recognize images. I
didn't show it my penis.
Or you suggested...
we were walking in the park and you asked me a question. Oh, what's that tree? I was like, well, let's give it a fucking go, shouldn't we?
And then you suggested showing your penis to it and asking if it was a pleasure model. Don't lie now just because we're on the fucking podcast. But yeah, anyway, as for uses for the new features of the ChatGPT 4 model, you can show it stuff and it can tell you what it is.
And you can talk to it as well.
You can talk to it as well. And now there's been this controversy about Scarlett Johansson's voice being stolen by Ursula the Witch, a.k.a. Sam, what's his name? Bankman-Fried. Sam Altman.
No, Sam Altman.
Whatever.
Sam
they're all
is
the same.
Crypto boy.
They're all the same evil tech fucking villain. They all kind of blur into
Sam
each other.
Altman's not scammed anyone yet.
Well... Not yet. Just wait. I mean, he
exactly
scammed ScarJo. He literally scammed ScarJo for her voice.
Well, I don't know. It's sort of that thing, isn't it? It's like, you could sample something and do all sorts of things with anything you can source on the internet. It's kind of like, it's a little bit
yeah,
like...
but pulling Ursula the Sea Witch moves, that's like a huge violation of somebody's
can someone, if they haven't like explicitly copywritten their voice... Copyright their voice by nature.
What kind of demonic shit are you talking right now? Do we all need to patent our very essence?
It's the same
to
thing.
To prevent these like fucking demonic tech.
I like that Tucker Carlson has been doing these long form interview like podcasty type things every week now, because now there's enough material of Carlson to make a fucking great Skyrim AI interview with him. So now he interviews all these people from Skyrim, and he does it as well as Joe Rogan. It's like whoever they can get like hours and hours and hours and hours of their voice capture from, they can just then make anything out of you. And the same with visual imagery, the same with anything. So it depends on like how much of you is part of the culture, and how interesting are you to the wider, whatever you'd call it, zeitgeist.
Yeah, but
Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, very interesting. People are going to use their voice. They're going to sample their voice in techno music. They're going to do all sorts of stuff with it because that's just the fucking nature of who we are and what we will do with new tools. And if you're someone like Scarlett Johansson, who's a very pretty lady, I think she should be pretty grateful that there's not been worse things done
but that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say.
With AI. That's
like a racket threat almost. Like, you're beautiful. It's a shame nothing worse has happened to you. That's such a fucking,
if I was Sam Altman, I would have played
twisted.
if I was Sam Altman, I would have definitely used my opportunity to be Tony Soprano.
That's so fucking twisted. Like, it's
be
so
a shame
twisted.
if some AI pictures came out about you, wouldn't it?
God.
It'd be a real shame.
Oh, this is why we need to like halt this. We need to make it stop.
Your tits look real nice in that dress today.
Oh my God. You're banned from the podcast. You're off.
That would be
Bye.
so funny. It would be.
Anyway.
But it's one of my favorite movies as well, so I understand why he did it.
No to all of this. This is an assault on Sophia. Okay.
Her name's Scarlet.
Sophia, meaning all women. This is a outrage, and I stand with Scarlet on this. I do stand with Scarlet.
I guess what I was trying to make with my allegory earlier is like, how much of yourself have you given to the world to become who you are, and how much of then that do you owe to your stature now amongst everybody else?
But you make it sound like a Faustian fucking bargain.
It is, though. That's kind of the thing. And I think everybody sees the Faustian bargain of fame laid completely bare for what it is, especially now that anybody could
but none of them could
become the next viral person and then get fucking harassed at work whatever the fuck.
But none of them...
Everybody fucking sees like what that trade-off is with that stuff. So it's not a Faustian bargain, I think, is a little bit naive.
But none of them could anticipate this. None of them could anticipate technology accelerating to the point where people can do Ursula the Sea Witch shit and like literally steal your fucking voice. It's one thing to say you're famous, the Faustian bargain is getting followed around by paparazzi, losing your privacy, XYZ. It's another thing to say your very essence now belongs to the fucking masses to do with as they please. And the thing is, this shit affects women, like you said. It affects women a lot more. It's dangerous. In a lot of ways, women are always the canaries in the coal mine when it comes to this sort of thing.
I think AI would be too alluring if it sounded like Scarlett Johansson as well.
Oh my God.
It needs to sound like...
I love how you just ignored everything I said. And you're just thinking about how you can show your penis. Fucking AI Scarlett Johansson. I swear. Civilization is finished. It's actually fucking finished. I don't know why I bother doing this fucking show. Like, it's done. It's fucking done.
I think if you're gonna have AI that sounds like you can talk to it, should sound like Roz from Monsters Inc. and then you'll only use it as much as you really need to. You won't get too addicted to it.
You won't get too attached.
Sounds like Scarlett Johansson. You're gonna be talking about all day. It's not gonna be.
Well,
good.
that's the point. The reason Sam Altman says in the article that he stole her voice is because his favorite movie is Her. Which is terrifying because I'm pretty sure he probably saw it as like an aspirational thing.
If I was a super nerd
instead of a cautionary tale.
If I was a super nerd that owned my own AI company, I would do the same thing.
I mean, it's just so twisted. It's so twisted.
I can't really hold it against him.
Well, I do. Humanity should, and Sophia, the bearers of Sophia's light should, because this is some dark, twisted shit. And yeah, I do. So she's seeking legal advice now. And I think we're going to see a lot more cases like this where celebrities begin to seek legal advice because they're still people at the end of the day. And like, you should be able to get to choose what parts of you belong to the public and don't. I don't think it should be a non-consensual thing in that sense. I don't think people should just be able to take aspects of the essence, the work, the creativity, the ingenuity of others and appropriate them for profit. I have an issue with that. But Larry and Jihad.
I don't know. It's interesting. I think like it's kind of the technology's kind of run up against the philosophy of the pirates in Sweden.
What do you mean?
The pirates. There's the pirate political party in Sweden that basically, I think, either still have to this day or were affiliated with the founders of the Pirate Bay. And they basically advocate for a world that abolishes copyright so that patents and all of these things will be completely free for anybody to use and appropriate in any way they see fit to benefit themselves, start a business, wider community, whatever, instead of it being locked away in this arbitrary like system which just inherently like keeps benefiting elite people basically. But that then also does totally undermine like the whole principle of like how musicians historically got paid for music. Now I don't think really, unless you got a big sync deal or something like that, or you were like, you know, fucking Taylor Swift, you were like a huge pop star or something like this, that you're not really going to be making any kind of significant money on streaming. So
but even
so then live is the only thing for you as a musician. So kind of copyright has less of a kind of impact and sway for you in many ways. It's kind of an interesting idea, like the sort of anti-copyright thing, and then AI now really makes you completely confront that, because you can, everything is information, everything is data, whether that's the way you look, the way anything, like anything, if it's a visual image or an audio recording or anything, text, it is data that can be fed into a machine that can then do something with that. And so it really takes that whole copyright idea or that copyright philosophy and brings it kind of more into the forefront and makes people kind of think about it maybe in ways without them even realizing that they're thinking about something like that, right?
And that's the thing about the whole copyright thing is that Grimes talks, well, I should say lisps, not talks, about this all the time, and talks about how she's sort of, you know, spins the same yarn about, you know, copyright free, and she's like, I don't care if the basilisk takes my voice, fuck me up, Ursula. That's her. And like she sort of spins that yarn, but the thing that annoys me about it is that would like only really work in a system where people are like fairly compensated for what they do. I think the reason people are protective over their rights and their stuff is because the only way you can get value out of what you create is by doing that in this system. And if you were to get rid of that and still keep the model that we currently have, you would just be empowering the people at the top to fuck over the people at the bottom.
Well, I think even using stuff like that creatively, because I think what her stance was basically use my voice, but then you have to give me you know, a cut on the royalty basically. But
she's also a super mega famous
rich person. So it's sort of like you struggling artist appropriates Grimes' voice in some way because clout and potentially recognizability or something. You do something creative with that she had completely no part in whatsoever, other than that you sampled her voice in this new technological way. Think about it in that way. Like instead of her, she's like written a song and you've managed to rip the vocal just for that bit of a song. Now it's like you've managed to get a machine to write a Grimes song, and now you can sample that Grimes song and just take bits of that off of it and do whatever. So there's literally, I think people can't really wrap their heads around it fully yet. Like a lot of it is kind of so now fluid. In terms of data and how it all gets transitioned and transposed and everything, that it just it really, I think the jig is kind of largely up.
Big
with stuff like that.
Big time.
I think that I don't know. It depends. Like we can talk, people talk all the time. Like, oh, it's still amazing to put on a record, and people still listen to albums, and look at people buying vinyls, etc., etc. And oh, look, people go to the movies. Look at Barbie. And it's sort of like, I don't know. I think that when you look at the wider ways that humans behave and how we have behaved and the trend of that behavior over the last 20 years, it doesn't look good for those things.
No.
It looks like a race to the fucking bottom in all of those areas.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what everybody's been crying for, like the last 5 years across almost every industry of entertainment and journalism and everything that's seemingly actually affected by this stuff, by things like AI, like technology like AI. So, yeah.
Yeah, true that. And
Until
like,
it makes a grime song she would make. Maybe then she would just bring that person on and fucking milk them for clout in a way.
Yeah.
Like, and then they'll be opening for her and it will increase her ticket sales and stuff. So it will be a symbiotic, clouty, milky bullshit fucking game, which is kind of like how a lot of like pop star music-y bullshit shit kind of is anyway. So, it's not really a new game.
No, absolutely not. Now, technology has evolved to the point where weirder, more insidious trends can evolve. And that's kind of worrying. And to our next point, which kind of ties into this whole ScarJo story, I found this like really weird tweet. Do you want to go to it? I found this really weird tweet from some guy who's like in a Bay Area tech guy on Twitter. And he's sort of going into the culture of Silicon Valley and how it affects women. And he specifically mentions Open AI. Well, the person who he's sort of quoting here mentions Open AI, mentions Sam Altman. But let's just start with the first paragraph. There's a lot to unpick here. So the person says, I don't think events like the consensual, non-consensual CNC sex parties and heavy LSD use of some elite AI researchers have been good for women. They create a climate that can be very bad for female AI researchers, with broader implications relevant to X risk and AGI safety. I believe they are somewhat emblematic of broader problems, a coercive climate that normalizes recklessness and crossing boundaries, which we are seeing play out more broadly in the industry today. Move fast and break things, but applied to people. That first paragraph, there's like a lot to unpick there already. And I mean, even just talking about the way Scarlett Johansson's voice was swiped,
I don't think you need to attend some sort of debauched LSD rape party.
But no, I'm just saying the fact that
end up stealing Johansson's voice.
No,
as I said, I would have done that, and I have not done any of those things.
That's not what I'm saying. Okay, let me finish my point. I'm not being puritanical, but this is sort of a pattern you hear in the sort of tech culture of the Bay Area. I remember when Sam Bankman-Fried's case was going on. All that stuff leaked about their weird polycule drug den sex party and like the crossing of boundaries and, XYZ. And you're seeing this echoed here. It's sort of a motif among these people. And the crossing of boundaries, the violation of consent, these sorts of things are, sort of present here. And you see that happening with them taking Scarlett Johansson's voice. And it wouldn't surprise me if the way this technology evolves has a detrimental effect on women, considering the sort of culture and mentality that's like fostered among the people that are like creating it. And even if women themselves are facing a dangerous environment within those environments, that's also alarming too.
Well, it's that thing, isn't it? I think everything's a double-edged sword. Where did the internet benefit women or harm women, do you think?
It's a difficult question. It's a really difficult question.
Because I think in lots of ways, I think especially like in the zeitgeist anyway, lots of people would claim that the internet liberated women to give them lots of freedom to shake it on OF and make their own money in new ways that they weren't able to before.
Well, what about the fact that the rates of depression and body dysmorphia and all this stuff is like higher than it's ever been among like young women? All of these different elements. There are lots of different detrimental things, and there are some beneficial things. But the reason I bring that up is because we Live in Public. It's a really great documentary. We watched it with our patrons in our Discord, And if you want to be a part of that, you can join us on Patreon. But we watched this documentary, and it's about basically an experiment that was done at the turn of the millennium.
It's an art project.
Yeah, an art project where this tech billionaire again, tech millionaire again, he basically made the first streamer house. He basically got a bunch of people together, gave them a bunch of drugs, gave them guns, gave them everything they could possibly need, and put them in this sort of fish tank environment where they were broadcasting everything live to the world. And obviously, like, it devolved into chaos, but it was kind of, I guess, predictive of the culture of the internet now. Exhibitionism, clout chasing, all of these different elements were, a part of that kind of experiment. And he himself was quite a troubled guy. He was quite sick and lonely and fixated on how to gather and like control people in that sense. So his psychology kind of ended up influencing the experiment he created, which was like predictive of certain metrics we have on the internet now. And the fact that you have these people, these elites in like the Bay Area that are involved in all kinds of weird, nefarious shit, that have evolved sexual proclivities that involve the violation of consent, that have fostered an environment where women don't feel safe. All of these different things play a role into the way that they approach how these technologies affect women. And like I said, stealing someone's voice without their consent because you fancied them and they played this sort of anima character in a movie you liked. That's fucking twisted. I love how you do your evil laugh after I say that. Yeah, it's so twisted.
Yeah, but if you could, you would though.
No, I wouldn't.
That's the point.
Look, I have a big old throbbing crush on, I don't know, Michael Fassbender. I'm not gonna like fucking.
If you could make it so your phone, instead of like you having to like use your fucking big like hands and like clumsy fingers to like mash everything out and be there this long delay between all your actions, you could just speak to Michael Fassbender. And Michael Fassbender go, "Yes, of course, Angie. I'll get right on that. I'll send that text to whoever the fuck right now."
No. I would feel so corny.
Be like, wakey, wakey, Angie. It's Monday morning.
No,
I've got things to do today.
No, I have
and
my...
you'd be like, oh.
No.
Yes,
no.
it is.
I have my cat to wake me up.
When I do that, it doesn't work. When Naboo does that, it doesn't work either.
Yeah, I'm pretty grumpy in the mornings, won't lie.
Maybe Fassy will make you like chill the fuck out a little bit.
Maybe,
and wake up on the right side of the bed.
My AI, maybe I'll just leave you for my AI boyfriend. How about that? Let's look at the chat.
What do you think about old ideas of your soul being captured when your photograph is taken? I think having your voice stolen has a similar feeling. I agree with Angie's point about your soul being taken. Well, I mean, so within that analogy, that is that would be the process of recording your voice. The process of recording audio captures the soul of whatever that thing is, essentially. So it's not actually even, that's like a passive process, a process, or it could be an active process.
I think it captures part of your essence, not necessarily your soul, but an element of your essence. And I think that's powerful because if something's capturing your essence, you want to know what that's being put towards, And one other thing is I wanted to say about that is Jung was also really suspicious about cameras and being recorded. He actually didn't get recorded until that BBC documentary that was done of him when he was very old in the 60s. And that was one of the only times he permitted himself to be recorded. And then I think there are some audio recordings of him. But he really was like suspicious about the type of culture that would arise from recording things.
He was a nervous Nelly.
Oh my God.
And like it was a new technology. So of course he was fucking freaking out. But then,
oh my God.
But then if you think about, if I think it's good to kind of think about it in comparison to other human changing technological advances.
Yeah.
And so that's why I compare it to, like, say not even just you as a woman as part of it, but you as a human being. How do you feel like the internet is a majority positive force, provides good for you as a human being, or does more damage to you psychically and everything else than not. And before the internet, television was that in Jung's day.
Yeah.
And so that's why he was all spooked out. Oh, what was television going to do to the mind and this and that? And you could ask the very same... I think we should answer the same question again about television even.
Well, even then, like, talking of television, someone from that period, David Foster Wallace, it's really interesting to read his writing now, because a lot of what he was writing about was the TV culture of the 20th century and how much that like influenced him, and also how much certain trends within it terrified him, and also how those trends are even more accelerated now in the culture of the internet. So there is some crossover there. Also, the incentive structure on television and within television networks also had a deleterious effect on women and women's image within the culture. Women, again, are the canaries in the coal mine. The essence of woman.
Do you think it was? Do you think it was worse when Bud Light had pin-up girls walking down the beach with Bud Light cans, or it was worse when Dylan Mulvaney
I don't
did whatever she did with the fucking
I don't have a problem
Bud Light
with
cans?
I don't have a problem with sexy ads. I like in that sense. Like, it depends.
So what's your problem?
It depends on the ad and the level of objectification. But anyway, and the way the woman is portrayed. But anyway, let's move back to the
No. So like so internet as a human being,
Yeah.
is it largely positive, or do you think negative?
I think it has a
overall?
lot of potential to be positive, but I think that it's acting in a lot of negative ways currently.
But as a percentage for good and bad, how would you split it?
I don't know. I don't like to do those sorts of binaries.
Oh, that's such a get out.
I don't like to do those
No,
sorts of binaries.
you're on a
Sorry.
podcast. You have to answer the fucking question.
No,
That's
I
the
don't.
point.
I don't want to answer that question. Well, I do think that it has a lot of potential, but I also think that currently it's acting in a lot of negative ways.
I think it's pretty 50-50. And it sounds like you think it's pretty 50-50 too. And you can just say it's 50-50.
Oh my god.
You don't have to do a fucking non-answer.
Oh my god.
Like, you're not going to offend anybody, you know?
I'm
It's
not
okay.
I'm not trying to hide behind the question. I'm trying to get closer to the point of what I actually feel.
Okay. And then so step back from that, like, I would say like TV was kind of the closest thing to that then really changed human behavior and society at large. TV, how would you see? It's actually really quite hard to imagine a world without TV, because it's not, we've never lived in one.
No.
So it's not really a data point in which we have reference.
Yeah.
We have mild bit of, not even really. You need to kind of ask our parents for reference of what life. I mean, you see all the culture and everything, all the stories we have is all of the 20th century before the internet. So that's kind of our reference point of what life was like before the internet, I guess. Because I was like, what, fucking 3 or something?
Well,
when
what's your
everyone
point?
had
What's
it.
your point?
TV. What do you think life was like before? Do you think it had a good or bad effect on people?
Well, I think that watching people and watching their behavior has an effect on you. You know, there are certain things you see in terms of like status signals, behavioral cues, norms, XYZ. And I think people behaved very differently before we started living in public. I think the more we live in public, the more we attune ourselves to like living in public. Whereas before, I think that there was probably a more organic, less self-aware, less cynical kind of approach to life. Even I remember I saw a tweet today about sex scenes, and someone tweeted a video of a director kind of standing on top of a male actor like this with a camera while he's like thrusting, and it looked really cringe. And the person tweeted,
what do you mean, like they're doing it doggy and he's like standing above
well, no,
them?
she's presumably on top of him, and the director is taking the woman's position, and the male actor is thrusting into the director while he's like filming it for this sex scene. And the person tweeted, this is why I don't like sex scenes, because the majority of the time they're like cringe. And they were like, how can you look at this and not think of this as cringe? And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, I think what this person is really getting at is that sex scenes set a certain expectation for human sexual behavior. Before television and stuff, the only way you would get to know about sex was by having it. You weren't, or if you were like some kind of king or rich man or lord, maybe you could like,
Well, you know, tails down the tavern.
oh yeah, you could go to the tavern, you could go to get a prostitute, or if you were some kind of king or lord, you could have access to prints like of erotic imagery or whatever. But for the most part, the only way people were experiencing sex was in an embodied way.
Mm-hmm.
But then you start seeing sex in the movies, and then people are like, oh my God, comparing themselves to the sex they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Am I having sex wrong? I don't feel that sensation. Does that mean this is wrong? People start sort of like picking themselves apart. And I think that that's the reason why people have this sort of visceral reaction towards sex scenes now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this whole, are sex scenes bad or good discourse? I think people have gotten to the point where they're tired of like living outside of embodied experience and want to kind of take a step back from, and you can just do that. I don't know why people bitch about these things on the internet. Like, you can just take a step back from the spectacle.
I watched a fun schizo video today because Y-Files had a new video out on subliminal messaging, basically. And television was the first, or moving images was the sort of first experimental ground for subliminal messaging as well. So that's arguably what that technology brought in, and that actually there are even then laws to say, no, you can't do that because it's so... Yeah. It's so bad to be like flash and drink beer and shit.
But there's always, but the thing is, there's always been propaganda, you know, for most of human history in some form or another. But obviously, these technologies accelerate how we're exposed to propaganda. And like the thing you were talking about, the thing you were watching this morning hinted at Edward Bernays. And Edward Bernays was kind of, you know, Freud's nephew, probably had some insight into psychoanalysis. And, you know, this sort of new information about the human unconscious and how it worked, he just sort of was freewheeling with it like a madman. And I sort of feel that a similar energy with these, like, fucking Bay Area elites. But anyway, let's read the rest of the...
Can I finish one thing on my insight with all of this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that...
We'll get to the chat in a minute.
Is that photography, moving pictures, television... the ability to broadcast to the whole world, then the internet, being able to do that more instantaneously and just from your bedroom at an even lower cost. And now with AI, all of this I see as basically ways that humans catalog and communicate about the world around them and try to entertain each other about it as well.
Yeah.
And that there's also this kind of like weird phenomenon with the quantum world, in which when you start to look at something, the very act of observing something changes its behavior. And that we are like a reflection of that. So it's sort of like an as above, so below kind of thing. And we're seeing the sort of effects of what happens when something is like, I guess, not just looking in one mirror, but then like everyone else's mirror at the same time,
fractals.
and it sort of like keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder because the eyes on
the funhouse mirror effect.
The amount of observers are becoming too many. And so
but that's that's the whole point of the
crazy singularity
of consciousness
of weirdness.
Yeah, well, that's like a whole theory out there, is that these tech elites are trying to create a singularity of consciousness.
No, but it's
in order
like
to immanentize the eschaton.
It's it's a manifestation of that really, like, you know, hippie idea of like we are the universe, we are one. We are the same. All of that kind of thing. It's like, we're all of this like quantum energy, and actually we behave even on a macro level in the same way that you would the smallest level that is imaginable. So it's sort of I don't know, interesting.
It is really interesting, definitely. But yeah, back to the post. So we've already unpicked the eyes wide shut LSD non-consensual kink parties and all of the stuff in the first paragraph. So then the second paragraph says, there's nothing wrong IMO with sex parties and heavy LSD use in theory, but combined with the shadow of 100B plus interest groups leads to some of the most coercive and fucked up social dynamics that I've ever seen. The climate was like a fratty LSD version of 2008 Wall Street bankers, which bodes ill for AI safety. So what is 100B plus interest groups?
So that would be like 100 billion. Will be the value of the interest groups that are people involved in these sex parties, I guess.
Ah,
Is that not even one specific one, but like together as a clique of people, basically. Oh, that this one represents this. That's like 5 billion or whatever, and then collectively they make 100 billion as interest groups. And I understand what this person's saying. The whole AI safety thing, I just like honestly, I think that's kind of like something that like a lot of do-goodery people try to kind of talk about. I know Sam Altman talks about it an awful lot as well, and I think it is an offshoot of this sort of what do you call it? Effective altruism. It's like a word. It's a phrase that they really fucking love. Like all the people that are into.
I think there's two branches of it. I think there are
world.
people who are genuinely concerned with AI safety, and then I think there's like the effective altruist branch who kind of use it as like a euphemism for other more nefarious things.
Well,
But in terms of what he's describing here is kind of like a bacchanalian environment of sort of frat bros. And they're creating sort of world-changing technologies. They're riddled with sexual pathology. Their social dynamics are coercive and fucked up. Like what he sort of describing here sort of reminds me of my experience in certain media circles and the sort of toxic dynamics that evolve in those. And the idea that this would be happening within, the culture that's like basically has put itself at the helm of tomorrow is quite frightening.
I think that this stuff probably did happen back when Google was first being founded in the late 90s and in the We Live in Public era.
Yeah.
But they weren't stupid enough to invite journalists to come along with them.
But even
although
then,
some of them were, and some of the, like that Josh guy.
but even
And
then,
then they ripped him apart and
Yeah.
fucking and made him a complete public pariah.
yeah.
So that's why nobody fucking did that.
But even then,
But now it's kind of based and cool to do stuff like that. So it's okay if you get this influencer from Twitter to come along to your fucking crazy LSD sex party, even though you're a bunch of elites.
Yeah.
Because if even if they write about that stuff, it's just kind of edgy and based.
Or whatever. Yeah.
So it's a totally
But even
and it's
then-
again the reason that's changed. Observer,
yeah.
because we're all now on the internet in this way that like didn't exist back when it was first forming, even though that was still a fucking
Very true.
world-changing technology.
Very true. But even in We Live in Public, the sort of bacchanalian environment of that sort of turn of the millennium art experiment yielded danger for the people who were involved in it. Like there were guns involved. People were having psychological breakdowns. Shit went out on the internet that those people could never take back. But because they were in this sort of capsule fish tank environment where society's rules seemed to not apply, all of their inhibitions kind of fell away and they began to behave in ways that they otherwise wouldn't. The id was totally unleashed. And that's what that's what this sounds like. And it's dangerous. And it's exactly why I bring up Brené's. Sorry to sound like a schizo. Why I bring up Brené's is because Brené's was doing exactly that when Freud kind of was able to pinpoint and, identify the id. Brené saw using the id or appealing to the id as like a powerful cultural force, appealing to people's base desires and fears and material greedy wants, XYZ.
I know, but I think that's why it's such a fucking nothing thing to start worrying about AI safety, because any of this technology is only going to exist within the system and culture that it's in, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want it, if you're really concerned, you would want much larger change than just a bit of regulations on the newest technology that you're worried about might mistreat a celebrity you like or something. I don't know. It's not going to mistreat you individually, is it? Let's be totally honest. And if any fallout that does happen from whatever technology that comes around is also kind of just part of the tides, and that's not any individual's fucking fault. So AI safety, it feels like such a fucking a great thing to talk about if you want attention at the moment, basically. And I think that if anyone was seriously concerned about it, they would be advocating for a hell of a lot more than some fucking software regulations.
For sure. Could you click on the thing so that I can read the rest of of the thing. There we go. Okay. So the next part says women are like the canaries in the coal mine. They are often the first to realize that something has gone horribly wrong and to smell the cultural carbon monoxide in the air. For many women, Silicon Valley can be like Westworld, where violence is pay to pay. I love the fact that this person referenced Westworld.
Does he mean pay to play?
Probably. But yeah, I like the fact that this person mentioned Westworld, because one of the things that's like highly emphasized is the treatment of women in that.
Mm-hmm.
Dolores's arc in particular is kind of portrayed as this sort of assault on the divine feminine in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And the women are the ones who suffer the most in Westworld, in this sort of bacchanalian technological world where boundaries are violated, but in a way that seems plausible and okay, which is precisely what Sam Altman did with Scarlett Johansson's voice. It's like a non-consensual, kinky way of stealing someone's fucking voice. It's a consensual, non-consensual fucking voice stealing party or whatever the fuck.
Well, there's no...
Like it's crossing boundaries, but in a way that still provides plausible deniability. It's a bacchanalian environment where anything goes, where people are allowed to sort of, do whatever they want. In that sort of environment, women suffer. And Westworld really showcases that, which is why I think it's really interesting that they bring Westworld up in this thing.
Okay, so you know what? I think if you can all of a sudden use Scarlett Johansson's voice in ChatGPT, like in a massively available commercial product, I don't think that's correct. That's not right. He shouldn't be able to do that. As it currently stands, anybody that wants to can find as many clips as possible of Scarlett Johansson talking in interviews, everything else, and they could make their own.
Yeah, but we're talking about things on a commercial level.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it is just on a commercial level. I think it is just like I don't want people doing that with my voice. I don't want that to happen. And it's like, well, kind of tough. But there's nothing that you can do that's going to stop that at all.
When here we're talking about on a commercial level, and we're also seeing a culture that sort of gets off on the violation of consent and this sort of bacchanalian free-for-all environment. That's not safe for women. And like, I think women are the canaries in the coal mine. Like Sandbank, like the reason why it's canaries in the coal mine is we'll bitch and moan about it, quote unquote. We'll nag about it, and people will be like, "Shut up, women." And eventually, it starts happening to everyone else. So I think that we should watch these things and not dismiss them.
Everyone else has their sexy voice taken from them.
Everyone else's sexy voice is gonna get fucking swiped if they're not careful.
See, I don't know. I don't know. It's just sort of, it's a wave of what's going to be possible with these new technologies and people. That's what I mean about the philosophical angle of the sort of copyright debate and that kind of thing, and what is intellectual property, and what does that even fucking mean, and what is just now data in this kind of world that we live in that is mostly digital. It's physical in how we interact, but everything that governs our lives is like ran digitally. So it is at least a 50% digital world. And for you to exist with that used to be the trade-off with all those things that you already have known about with data and everything else. Now the data just looks different. Yeah,
for sure. But even then, I mean, yeah. Let me read the last half of this. I've seen people repeatedly get shut down for pointing out these problems. Once, when trying to point out these problems, I had 3 Open AI and Anthropic researchers debate whether I was mentally ill on a Google document. I have no history of mental illness, and this incident struck me as an example of blind spots and groupthink. It sounds exactly like a Twitter fucking...
Yeah, it sounds like some unhinged mentally ill behavior from people at Anthropic or the places that you've talked about with the Google document.
Yeah.
That's like not normal behavior, and that's strange.
But it's common in like journalistic circles, media circles, political circles,
catty circles,
tech circles. All of these sorts of circles is where this sort of dynamic rears its ugly head, and I think people should be deeply concerned. the whole thing about women and AI safety and copyright. These are pressing questions now. Like, we can't avoid them. We have to start addressing them as a culture.
I think everyone should fucking loosen up a little bit. I think that like we're lucky because we've done a podcast for a while.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to if we wanted to have a conversation with ourselves, we could do that.
We could do that.
That would be really easy.
If we wanted to have a few weeks off, we could just generate like
we should try
an episode and see if anyone notices.
We should try that. That would be so funny.
No, I will not make a sacrifice to the basilisk. I will not give myself over to the machine.
No, we could have Rogan on as a guest.
That would be so cool.
It would be so funny.
It'd be fun. I'm joking. Absolutely. That'd be corny as fuck. Let's not do that.
Or Tucker Carlson.
It'd just be me calling him daddy the whole time. And you seething. Anyway, before we move on to our next topic, let's see the chat.
Do not do that, Metal King.
Let's see what the chat's saying.
We won't, only as a joke, not as like an actual thing, because you know, this is
sorry.
The chat.
That's the chat. Sorry, go on.
In
a way, I see myself in Josh Harris's loneliness and his drive to build a community of people, but his fascist tendencies scare the hell out of me.
Dude, see, there we go. That's
Josh Harris is the millionaire from We Live in Public. We still need to put that episode out for free, so we'll put it out for free.
Jay George is fucking nailing it, dude. Like he had such an interesting idea, but then he kind of went off the rails with the CIA interrogation, torturing like people individually, and then like requesting everyone's social security number and doing all this like really creepy other fascisty stuff. Like that wasn't cool.
But that's exactly.
But all the other bits of like getting all these amazing creative people together in this like amazing space to like think about the new technology and all that kind of stuff.
That's exactly the Faustian bargain.
That's like the fun bit. But then all of the other gross stuff. We should try and do one without all of the gross stuff. That's kind of what
Mystic in the Machine. We'll do our own like Y2K.
We're our own. We live in public.
We found the place in Camden that's perfect for it. So maybe if the show gets big enough, we'll host something there. That would be fun.
We Live in Public, Mystic in the Machine month.
Like a tribute kind of like rave
where
we psychologically torture you, but also like give you a good time.
All the Discord members that can make it to an undisclosed location get to hang out and go through the art experiment with us.
And we film everything and stream it all live. It'll be the time of your life. But anyway, I feel like it looks like fun, and like that's the Faustian bargain that the internet offers you. It offers you what these tech billionaires, do, the sort of free-for-all bacchanalian environment where you can like, be anonymous and do things you wouldn't do otherwise in real life. But at the same time, let's take your data. Let's take your let's lock you into algorithms. Let's push this shit down your throat. And that's exactly what happened in the We Live in Public art experiment.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with these AI technologies. They ask for your essence.
I know, but it's
like a deeper aspect of you that it's asking for now in exchange.
I would say this, like all of that stuff is still predicated on old media monetization methods for a new generation of technology and media. Like couldn't really figure out escaping advertisement essentially. So you had classic bullshit banner ads like in the early days of the internet and all of the shit that would give you viruses and pop-ups and all of that garbage, and now you just have like every piece of content is sponsored or fucking every and it will have an ad in before it or after it or even in the middle if you don't have an ad blocker or something like that, and that's now the way that it can happen with the AI technologies and the kind of philosophy that at least Sam Altman has been going forward with, which is one thing I do heavily agree with, is just make a fucking great product. And you don't need to advertise on it because enough people will be using it that you just use it for the product's service. So you don't see adverts on fucking OpenAI's websites, and you don't see fucking shit on whatever.
Probably will.
And when you start to then use OpenAI And ChatGPT, instead of Google, when it becomes reliable like that, advertising will completely plummet, and you will see a massive change in how the internet operates. Hopefully, this is my real
wishful thinking.
silver lining out of what are the good bits and some of the bad bits. Yeah, your voice, your image, everything else about you is completely fucking
you
takeable.
You give that to the basilisk,
and,
but then you don't get any ads.
And that's gone. But like,
give your soul
there's
to
a
Satan
chance
for
that
no ads.
there's a chance that the very way we engage with the internet could completely shift because of that as well. And I think that is something to generally look forward to and to sort of try to help steer in some fashionable way if you're in any kind of position too. Maybe if you are and you're doing heavy LSD non-consensual sex parties,
invite us.
You also just like ads are like gross and they get in the way. You want like everything just fluid and like bang right there, raw, visceral, in the motion, you know. That's kind of what those guys seem to be all about. And advertising is the opposite of that.
Like Jay George says, Diddy's freak off parties, but for nerds. Yeah.
Put Alex Jones on as a guest. There you go. That's a fucking banging idea, dude.
Speaking of, we should get Alex Jones.
We could literally
AI
try and
on.
figure out like getting one of these voice bots and do a whole episode where we just talk to an imaginary guest that we've wanted to have on forever or whatever.
Let's see how we can make it happen.
Like, you know, that's the fun with all of this shit, man. It doesn't really fucking matter. And what's Alex Jones gonna do? He's gonna fucking sue me?
No, I mean,
I highly doubt it.
I mean, he knows the pain of being sued and like going through legal trouble, so I doubt he would.
I'll say that it's just expose Alex Jones is a real Democrat. We're the truth seekers, you know, underground people reporting on the ground here, and he's the one.
He's a fake
in his ivory fucking bunker, doomsday bunker, with his pills, crushing it all the little guys like us.
Exactly.
That's sort of the narrative will be. It won't be good,
exactly
Alex.
What it will be.
We'll have you as a guest if you like it or not. Maybe we do a bunch of them, and hopefully they're really funny, and then there's some clips that come from it, and then the real Alex Jones actually comes to our little flat and does a podcast with us.
I would love that. I would make him
and we
tea.
get high as fuck.
I would get him biscuits. It would be wonderful,
mate.
It would be so nice.
You can dream. You can dream.
So yeah, speaking of Diddy as well, someone brought Diddy up. Diddy did an apology this week. There's been a lot of Diddy news this week.
All is forgiven, boys. Everything's good now. It's okay.
It's the weirdest fucking psycho apology, like Patrick Bateman style thing ever.
Well, it's just bullshit, isn't it? Because if he felt bad about any of that stuff,
us big again.
If he felt bad about any of that stuff, he would have confessed and like made that stuff right.
No.
Without being arrested and raided by the CIA or whoever.
Well,
it was.
the new thing that emerged this week was that his former girlfriend Cassie and him were staying at a hotel in 2017.
Oh, and that
I
horrible
believe.
video of him like beating her pretty mercilessly as she tries to run away.
Yeah.
From his capture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he paid the hotel off to get that footage, and it never saw the light of day up until now.
Isn't that illegal?
That's the thing. This whole thing is revealing exactly how money and power works.
Which hotel chain was it?
It's I forget what it was called, but now it's defunct. I wouldn't be surprised if they shut down. Their shutdown.
I'm sure it wasn't a Hilton, and they managed to just scrub all the evidence that it was a Hilton.
Well, they paid somebody off, and something is.
So now all of a sudden, magically, nobody's culpable.
Well, something went awry there for sure. But yeah, that video emerged, and it was like super disturbing, among other allegations that are equally as disturbing.
I'd feel like it's like you're a doctor, or you're like Dr. Melfi in Sopranos. Like in your occupation, if you see someone like, or you know someone's going to do something illegal, you got to report it. Like that's
no.
Is that only doctors, or is that
supposed to be everyone?
like...
Which is why the hotel should be investigated, and people have been saying that like the hotel should be held culpable for concealing that. And the fact that it was concealed just shows you how these men with money and power operate. And how the fuck is Diddy a billionaire? Like, how is he a billionaire? How the fuck did that happen? His clothing line, Sean John, was like popular for 5 minutes.
I thought it was because he owns some sort of liquor company.
No, he doesn't own it. He owns like 1% in it, and he's like an influencer. He's not like an owner.
I thought that he was like, he had big stocks in like Tanqueray or like some
Maybe
like
he
really big
does.
name brand liquor that you're like, oh shit,
Maybe
I've
he
seen
does.
that. Like,
I don't
know
know,
what that
but
is.
like how he became a billionaire is beyond me. It's very strange. And then also, I don't necessarily buy it either because the music industry is not like making money like that these days. And, you know, I have a feeling that he's been paying a lot of people off for years and now he can't anymore. And that's why all of this is coming forward. And it's also unraveling a lot of threads. Obviously, it's linked to all kinds of nefarious stuff. People are even speculating that he's like an operative, a blackmail kind of operative in that sense. It's also a speculation that like you know, there are ties to hip hop executives and the prison industrial complex, like people who own and make money from the prison industrial complex, and that like rap music in general was this like whole conspiracy to kind of funnel African American youths into the prison system. Yeah.
Oh shit.
So it's unraveling all kinds of crazy threads and everything surrounding this whole thing. And yeah, I think I don't know if that's necessarily the truth. That's just sort of a theory. But
a part of me is kind of glad that a black guy did something bad like this.
Whoa. Why?
Because it just shows that we're all just human beings, and when you get to be a fucking powerful dude, you end up doing some wild fucking crazy shit, and it doesn't really matter what skin color you are. And most of the time, hey, we got Jeffrey Epstein, you got Harvey Weinstein, you got all of these crazy dudes. What are they all? They're all white motherfuckers. And I think that there was a big suspicion around ladies for a while there. They're like, oh, you can't be trusting the white boys. They do some wild shit. Have you been seeing all the stuff in the newspapers? Well, no. Hold the phone, ladies. Everybody does this stuff. Okay,
Jake
it's just about if you got.
Defend the honor of white men.
It's if you got. Yeah, I feel like
throwing a black man under the bus.
Nobody ever does. No one's brave enough to ever do that.
Defend the honor of white men. Okay, be quiet now. Anyway. But yeah, what was I saying? In my theory is anyway that I think.
Be quiet now.
I think
How dare you?
I think that the American establishment tends to elevate the worst and least deserving black people. Because America has like really intelligent, educated, like exceptional black people. And some of the most exceptional in the world. Like there's always this mythology that like Africans have all this beef with African Americans. Like when I was living there, people assumed I looked down on them because I don't come from, you know, their history. But I don't. I have a tremendous amount of respect for African Americans, especially the ones who make something of themselves, because like literally so much of the way that society is structured is to not have that happen. And then on top of that, the American establishment elevates, you know, illiterates, people from the fucking gutter, and puts them up here as like fucking heroes, you know? It's not as if there aren't talented black people to pull from. It's not as if that Diddy has no talent. Diddy literally stole the talent of other people. He used his record label as a way to siphon the musical ability of other people so that he could scrape off their royalties. He used other artists to enrich himself. He doesn't have any real talent. He's just like a hustler from the streets who had like a shark mentality, and they knew he would do anything to get to the top. And a lot of the African Americans that they elevate are people with that kind of low mentality, that kind of really fucked up low mentality. And yeah, I think it needs to stop. And I'm glad that this new generation, particularly Gen Z, are starting to sort of question this shit and are outraged about the people who have been elevated as bastions of success and what to aspire to, which is what Diddy's lifestyle was kind of aping, like this sort of playboy black George Clooney type of thing.
I was trying to remember, like, what was the songs of his that were really big?
I'll Be Missing You, but that wasn't even like his.
Wait, wasn't that a remix?
Yeah, it was a remix of The Police. Sting.
That's it. Yeah.
And apparently, so basically, the artist.
Yeah, he rapped the fucking riff and just
the artist that
it.
rapped on that song, and Faith Evans and everyone else didn't get a whole lot of money from that.
Right.
But then Sting gets so much money from that.
Well, I mean, it's just
but even then,
he did sample
even then,
like a
it just
massive
shows.
big song.
But
right?
that's the thing. Sting gets money. Diddy gets money. The artists who like put their heart and soul into it didn't get nothing.
There's none left.
This is Diddy.
You got two big boys on the credit sheet.
Diddy's a shady guy.
I'm surprised there's any crumbs left for no one.
He's been screwing people over for years. He has a history of violence as well. There are so many. His wife as well. There's been speculation that his ex-wife Kim Porter, allegedly, that he did her in.
He killed her.
Yeah. There's been all sorts of speculation about Diddy for years, but it's been covered up because of his position of power. And yeah, I think it's a shame. And I think that better people should have positions of influence.
Wasn't there like an American African American series of films called Love and Basketball and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Isn't it like Love and Hip Hop?
Yeah.
I feel like they should do a sequel that's like kind of like with this as well as the themes.
Well, Diddy actually did have a reality show called Making the Band in the early 2000s, where he basically tortured aspiring musicians and would do stuff like make them walk miles to get him cheesecake. And they've actually scrubbed a lot of the episodes from the internet. You can't find them easily because he was so abusive to the cast. Like he's a friggin' monster. Like he's been bad for years.
Jay George says he's well connected. That's it. Jay-Z is going to be the next on the
everyone keeps
block.
saying that Jay-Z's got dirt on him, and I mean Beyonce and the age gap between them when they started dating is questionable. That's the only thing that
How old was she?
He was in his 30s or something, and she was like fucking 19 or something like that.
I mean, yeah.
So they have like a big age gap between, and I think he dated her he was courting her when she was 17, and then like something allegedly something along those lines.
A 29-year-old or something.
Yeah, you have to look it up, but it was like a Tyga and Kylie Jenner situation.
I mean, it's not a good look.
Yeah,
it's not a good look.
Yeah.
But hey, let's even them out. Let's even out them black and white numbers for the big, like, elite pedophiles. I'm liking this. Jay-Z, fucking Puff Daddy, bring them on.
Oh my God.
We got to even them numbers out.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, moving on to our last topic for the evening. We were having a conversation about comedy the other day and the lack of it. And how, shit's quite perilous right now, globally. And in previous eras of history, when shit hit the fan, people always had comedy as like a source of comfort. Mm-hmm. But there seems to be like a dearth of comedy right now. And
I think like the
big dearth of comedy. It was
not just that, but like a comedy that was watched by most people, or like a mass kind of thing. Yeah. And so that's kind of where it drops off from today, where it's sort of a very fractured type of thing, like where it's like a meme or something like that, or a sketch or something like that on TikTok. Like it doesn't really have the same weight as like Anchorman or like, any of the kind of classic comedy films of the 20th century or 21st century.
Like you asked me what was the last comedy film I saw that I really enjoyed and that really made me laugh. And I said Bridesmaids, which came out in
2011.
So that was like a decade ago. And that it's been a very long time. And we were sort of researching into why, and we kind of got curious as to why there's such a dearth of comedy right now.
I was trying to rack my head about it, and I sort of got the furthest I got back was Deadpool, but Deadpool is more of a superhero film than it is a comedy film, if you know what I mean. Like it really heavily relies on its superhero-ness rather than its comedy. Its comedy even comes from its superhero-ness kind of thing. So you can't really count that. And then I think we were watching a video essay that then sort of brought up 22 Jump Street, which I haven't actually seen. I only watched 21 Jump Street, which I did very much enjoy, which I think is only a year before then or something, which was 2014. Also, the 21 Jump Street was 2013, so that would have been the last like comedy movie I watched. Yeah. Which is nearly fucking 10 years. Yeah. That's a really, really long time. Yeah. So I was sort of thinking like, why is this the case? And this video essay came to part of the conclusion that I agree with, is that it's the kind of international infrastructure of the movie business and how it changed
Yeah.
in the late 2010s, and how the birth of things like the Marvel franchises and Fast and Furious films and all of this kind of stuff led, showed the evidence of how well these really action-based kind of films translate internationally. And what has probably never really managed to translate internationally, or is very specific to each culture and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
comedy
Comedy
movies.
movies.
And so there's like way less interest in producing a comedy movie
Yeah.
because of the type of backing, or I don't know, I didn't even fucking know the kind of the cogs behind of where you'd get financing or whatever it was. I guess that's kind of like it's changed, and
Yeah.
you don't get comedy films like that anymore.
That's
And,
an element. And then there's also like the cultural element in terms of that the culture has changed to become so much more sensitive now in that sense. Like I couldn't imagine a film like Superbad. I know this sounds like a boomer take or whatever. But yeah, I couldn't imagine something like Superbad coming out today without a bunch of annoying backlash. And it's sad because, there's comedy is something that's subjective and it is cultural. Like I saw this thing the other day that was talking about the difference between British and American comedy, and how British comedy is always about like taking the piss out of yourself and how your life sucks and how you're an idiot and like making fun, like if you look at the British Office, it's like making fun of the characters, whereas American comedy is more about people doing silly things and saying silly things.
It's more situational and character driven. So something like Meet the Fockers. Or I could see a British Meet the Fockers. To be fair,
it would be very different though.
It would be very different, but
a lot more introspective and self-deprecating.
I could absolutely see a British version of that film.
Should we make it happen? We're already an interracial couple. I think
that is already made.
It's waiting to happen. BBC.
That was maybe a bad example. But maybe something like Anchorman. Like. That is so character driven.
Yeah, it's American.
It's not even situational.
It's like, look at the silly man say the funny thing. It's just American comedy.
Yeah, and it is also like this cultural figure of something that exists within the culture. The news guy.
Yeah.
And then the most ridiculous, over the top version of that you can make.
Yeah.
That is something that I wouldn't imagine being made from like a British comedic standpoint or view or whatever. But even then, British comedy films, that gets like slimmer fucking pickings, dude. But like we just haven't had movie infrastructure like that. So I do largely blame it on America.
Yeah, true.
We gave you Monty Python, and then you kicked us out of like making movies and stuff, and now we like have to just watch your shit basically.
But even then, I feel like comedy sort of shifted away from movies, and then it moved to streaming and shows. There's a handful of like comedic shows that like came out in that sort of post 2010s period that I really enjoyed and liked, but not so much in terms of movies. But now what stands in the place of comedy is like you said, memes, sketches, these short form bursts of haha laughter, instead of this sort of full experience. And also, the other thing that like sort of gets in the way of having more expansive experiences with comedy is the fact that like people don't seem that hungry for it. Like people don't really seem to care. They're happy to get that tiny fix of haha, so long as they're getting it like all the time. And I think that's happening with a lot of different art forms where things are getting shorter and shorter and less complex and less fulfilling but more addictive, if you know what I mean.
Kind of. I think another element of it is also that basically the way that people are happy to be perceived by the larger culture has also really shifted.
Yeah.
Where some people would quite proudly be comedians, and that was it. That was all they did. They didn't like make serious documentaries or do anything like that. They were like, they made comedy, and that was basically it. And then all of a sudden, like, everybody kind of has this feeling that they need to be taken seriously.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
all of the comedic actors and people that were in positions
at
of that
Seth
next
Rogen.
generation. Now, Seth Rogen has still been trying to make comedy movies, but they've just kind of fucking sucked.
Because now he's a sanctimonious liberal dad.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they've all turned into, is like fucking and like you said, everyone wants to be taken seriously and wants to be known as having. No one wants to be the idiot. And like you said, it does have a lot to do with like the way we're more obsessed with how we're perceived, and social media definitely plays a huge role in that.
Massively.
It's definitely eroded like the ground that comedy once like stood in. And lastly, I feel like we need it now. The fact, so I was saying before,
some people do it well. Some people do it really well. Like Louis does it really well.
Yeah.
He manages to hit that two note like incredibly well, and do some serious stuff that's really works, and mostly comedy that's just genius. But like everybody feels the need to do that, and you have less people being able to just thrive and actually be funny.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying before is it moved from movies to TV, and then from TV to memes and the sort of culture we have and sketches and all of that stuff. But then also now the places where you find comedy on the screen is like shows like White Lotus, you know, things along those lines that they're comedies per se, but they tend to be very sardonic, and they're not really just about that kind of, you know, laughter. They have a lot of cultural and internet inside humor. It's like they're not like these sorts of like stupid comedies that anyone can laugh at. This sort of universal comedy. The universal comedy has sort of died a slow death in that sense. Like anyone can watch, I don't know, Blazing Saddles, like in any generation, and laugh. But like if I was to show my mom White Lotus, for instance, she would just be like, why are all these white people like acting crazy? So yeah, I feel like it's sad that there's been the death of the universal comedy, and that now all you have are these sorts of sardonic, witty, like even Succession could be classed as like a comedy, a dramedy kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Even the way that it's shot kind of is like
kind of. I think it's definitely like comedy's definitely a large part of that, and I'm not sure if that is like wholly intentional or if it. I think it kind of is. I think it is a dramedy is the best way you'd describe that.
Yeah.
Because if for something to be, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other kind of series that are comedy series that are like I wouldn't. Succession. I loved Succession, but that doesn't come to my mind as a comedy series.
Yeah.
Because it was still too serious. It's still trying to say,
but it's like the closest.
They're still trying to say something like really but
that's
big
what
about
I'm saying
like,
is it's like the closest
power and culture and like all of this stuff. And there were lots of like actual.
But it's still trying to soften it with humor, and like that's the closest you get to comedy now in this culture, is this kind of Aaron Sorkin style comedy of errors. Even what's the name of Armando? What's his face?
Oh, Armando Iannucci.
Yeah, his whole style. They're comedies, but they're also like doing big political commentary. And it seems as if you have to have an excuse to be funny now. Well, you can't just like
the thick of it.
Like
I liked the
death of
the thick of it wasn't really political commentary.
Of course it is. It's making fun of like the culture of fucking of our politicians in the UK.
It's making fun of the nature
and our parliamentary process
of the nature of bureaucracy and the process of it.
So it has a wider point, and he's really great at that, and I enjoy his stuff. But I hate that everything has to be that now. That's what I'm trying to say.
I guess, but what I mean, but if I was to describe something as political, I would then say it has something to say about one side or another, and I don't think the thick of it has something to say about one political party or another at all. It's like purely about the farce of the entire process of the system, which is part of why it's so funny.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I don't necessarily include that.
But like something like Death of Stalin, I laughed, and it's fun. It was funny, and I enjoyed it and stuff. But at the same time,
that was there you go. That was for me. That was definitely the last recent comedy film. Death of Stalin was fucking fantastic.
It's funny, but again, it's still sort of shrouded in politics and the zeitgeist and XYZ. There's something about the uncomplicated humor. Like the reason I like Bridesmaids so much is because I'm a woman, and it's about a scenario I can relate to, like your best friend getting married, and you feeling like you're not in a place in your life where you're ready to let go of that and like to be gracious about it. And then there's this other hot, tall, richer friend who seems to be stealing your thunder, and hilarity ensues from that. Like, it's uncomplicated. It's not trying to make this big fucking political point, but I relate to it on a human level, on a personal level. And I think that in, like, bringing it back to, you know, history, I think in perilous times like this, we need more of that. We need it desperately for our psychic health. And the fact we're not getting it is dangerous, I think.
Last comedy series I watched was The Righteous Gemstones.
Oh yeah, the one about the church, the evangelical church.
Danny McBride, Jodie Hill.
Yeah.
And even I think that's kind of he's an interesting person to look at, because I regard Danny McBride as one of the 21st century's best comedic actors going. Yeah. Like, he is fucking flawless in almost everything that he's in. Yeah. With his timing and everything, he's such a funny comedian. Yeah. But he created Eastbound and Down, and then he created Vice Principals, and now he's created was it Righteous Gemstones? And so maybe for someone like him, even with all that talent and stuff, he finds a lot more freedom within the infrastructure of TV and pitching shows and that kind of thing than you would getting finance for like a movie and the kind of things that then, like, the mechanisms that has to go through. And so it points more to the mechanisms again than it does to the people are too woke and stupid, or
well, no, not necessarily that, but I think it's one of two things.
They take themselves too seriously. Like, it's a combination of those things as well.
I think it's one of two things. I think there are the people who feel like they have to make a point with everything. And then there are the people who like feel like they need to sort of like you know, have a political kind of thing behind it or whatever, and or they are sort of shrouded in a million layers of ironic detachment. People need an excuse to be funny now. You have to either be funny but not put your full heart in it, not like make a fool of yourself, not be cringe, unless you're in control. A lot of humor now is making fun of other people in a cruel way. Like, I feel like when people don't have healthy ways to laugh, we turn to dark, fucked up ways to laugh. And a lot of the humor I see now is like cruel, and especially meme humor as well. It's always like, you know, picking on people for certain traits, XYZ. When you don't have healthy ways to get your humor fixed, you start looking for dark and destructive ways to fulfill it. I
also feel like comedian is just something that is so easily taken by literally anyone
now. Yeah.
And so, like, even that fucking baby reindeer guy.
Oh God!
Right?
That demon. I can't even look at his face.
He called himself a comedian, but it's like,
oh God!
For you to be a comedian, you'd need to be like good at what you do and
kill
like
it with fire, please,
and be like gigging around and doing it, right?
Yeah.
And making a living. If you were making a living doing stand-up and doing comedy, call yourself a comedian. Like, until you do something like that, it's a hobby.
Well, I think if you've been
right?
paid, then you can call yourself a comedian.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like calling yourself a writer. I didn't feel comfortable doing that until I had been paid to write. And once that happened, then I was like, yes, now I can take that on. But yeah, it's
what
something...
can you do is you can appeal to everybody's like base sense of like fucking whatever. All the themes are in his fucking show, basically.
Yeah.
Because you can't be funny.
You can't be funny. That's what I'm saying. Everyone feels like they need an excuse to be funny or some kind of gimmick to be funny. They can't just be genuine and put their whole heart into it and be goofy. And we need it. Otherwise, our, you know, proclivity for humor takes darker, more sadistic forms.
A part of me wants to start going to more regular comedy nights in London,
but you
to
know
see
they're gonna
to see what they're like.
Shit. We're in Camden, so we're spoiled.
There's a comedy
for
club
choice.
literally like 100 meters away from the house.
We're in Camden, so we're spoiled for
so
choice.
I feel like we should definitely do it at least once.
Every time I look at the bill,
It's nobody you know. Don't even
I know,
kid
but
that it's anybody that you know.
there's far too many women. I'm joking. I'm just joking.
Wow.
But yeah, that you can tell that there's like women that look like they work in HR and like dads and like science teachers, and I don't know. Maybe I'm being judgmental.
Maybe you're being judgmental.
Maybe I'm being judgmental. We should try it. We'll do it as an experiment.
I don't know. I do feel like so much of it is on the way I perceive internet anyway is on the internet, definitely.
Yeah.
Like I would feel like it is like a craft, just like anything else, like music or anything else. And that if you were a comedian, you'd like end up on the internet, and I'd probably like see a clip of you or something.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the nature of it now.
Well, yeah,
there's very few British comedians I see break in that way at all.
No.
There's one lad that I found recently who's very funny that I found on YouTube who's managed to transition and get a little bit of viral fame with some clips.
Who?
A guy called Finn Taylor.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, he's like pretty unknown. But he's very funny. You should check him out on YouTube.
What's the name of the one that I really liked that you were listening to the other day? It's like an old man-ish. He was really funny.
Oh, Colin Quinn?
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
funny.
he's hilarious. He's a fucking legend. He women who look like they work in PR.
In HR.
Oh, in HR.
Yeah, that's who does comedy shows in London. Is like the woman in like fucking Baby Reindeer. Like
oh my god.
Like, or vagina monologues rejects.
Was the last time?
In like knitted hats.
I think the last time we saw comedy,
it's not a good scene.
It was the fact that we were in like a fucking Illuminati room.
Yeah,
that it
I
was
remember.
Like kind of weird.
Yeah, I remember.
Do you know what I mean?
I remember.
Like it was like we were at a Soho house because I was invited by a mate or a colleague or whatever, and because they were doing a stand-up comedy night, and I was talking about how much I like stand-up comedy. And then this American guy did a set, and he was okay. He was pretty good. But it was just like a room full of everybody that worked in advertising.
Yeah.
So he was just riffing on the types of people that work in advertising, basically. And I found that very funny, and it was good. But everybody else had probably a 10 times funnier time than I did because they all worked in advertising. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, it was a weird... But it seems
like that's where a lot of stand-up comedy... Because you could tell that the comedians who were doing that were making decent money. And I think that's where it's kind of gone now, is like the Soho houses. It's like a lot of these comedians are now doing these sorts of private...
Yeah.
Weird like Illuminati gigs or whatever, and they gotta make their money somehow in this climate.
Well, maybe at the Camden Comedy Club it will be a different vibe because there will be less Illuminati members there.
Think about it. You gotta if you're a comedian these days, you gotta think of material on fucking PR workers, on bankers, in order to entertain them in like their weird Soho House rooms or whatever.
I don't know. It annoys me that Jimmy Carr has become like the spokesman for British stand-up a little bit.
I don't think anyone in America or anywhere in the world knows who the fuck Jimmy Carr is.
Yeah, they do, because he's like the only British comedian that's on all of the fucking American podcasts.
Is he now?
Yeah.
Why?
He's been on Joe Rogan at least fucking twice.
Why?
He's been on like your mum's house. He's been on all of the fucking comedians' podcasts.
That's so strange. That's
just
really
Jimmy
strange.
Carr. Nobody else.
That is really, really
and just
strange.
like Jimmy Carr is like quite specific. He's like a very, very specific type of joke teller. And I don't feel like he's representative of any way of like larger British stand-up at all. Yeah. But I also don't know who would be. Like,
are there any new or up-and-coming comedians that you like or that you feel hopeful for?
That's what I'm saying. That Finn Taylor guy, I thought was really funny. He's got a special called My Wife. It's very good.
Okay.
It's very good.
Okay.
I enjoyed it very much.
How old is he? I'm saying like
he looks kind of like, I think he's probably in his late. He's in his like late 30s or his mid 30s at least.
Okay, maybe 30 and under is too young because most comedians don't really start till they're like
30
30s.
And under. The only ones I've enjoyed have been clips of the young lads that Tony has found on Kill Tony.
Oh yeah.
Like Cam Patterson. Fucking hilarious. There's moments where he is fucking hilarious. I understand like people's he's really annoying and the way he talks I can't fucking understand him and blah blah blah. Like that's okay. Like sometimes he is kind of illegible in that way to me. But at the same time there are moments where he is dead on fucking hilarious and his timing is great.
Anyone else that you think is good?
And yeah, the other little guy that he's got on a regular at the moment. This guy called Casey Rocket, who's fucking hilarious. I find him really funny and just like an oddball comedian. I've always really liked oddball comedians that will say and just do weird stuff and find language and play with it in a funny way.
I haven't really
and he's pretty good like that.
I haven't really found anyone because I stopped following comedy probably, like a decade ago. I used to be really into it. I thought maybe it was just growing up or whatever.
I haven't stopped following comedy. I think like it's just that there hasn't been any big new heavy hitters for comedy because it has been in this kind of format of podcasts, which then gets surrounded with like personality and people's like the way they live their lives and the kind of people they are and shit, basically, because you kind of end up just like getting to know these people and you're just like, oh, you're just a fucking shitbag and I really can't be asked to like listen to you anymore. Who are you talking about? Fucking for me that was Bobby Lee. Like Bobby Lee is like a funny comedian sometimes and he's got some funny sketches and whatever, but like he just sounds like a fucking degenerate and I like can't really be asked to listen to him go on and on and on. That's the thing about the old format
of comedy is you weren't really privy to anyone's
lifestyle. It was just jokes.
Because it was just jokes.
It was just about them fucking trying to make you laugh and it's just about jokes.
Yeah. Now everyone wants to invite you inside their like butthole.
Yeah, because now it's like if I spent that much time listening to someone, I probably would at least need to consider that I would actually get high with them or have a beer with them or hang out with them in any way and actually have that kind of conversation that I'm listening to for fucking hours and hours on end, basically. Yeah. If I hate listen to someone that I'm just like, oh, this person's an arsehole, but I'm going to listen to 2 hours of them talking about something. It's like
weird.
That is very strange. And I couldn't do that. So so now like sometimes like that happens. I think Andrew Santino is funny on like clips on the internet, and he's been great in Curb Your Enthusiasm as a comedic actor. I did not enjoy his stand-up special. I thought it was fucking terrible. A lot of their
stand-up specials are not good. The podcast comedians, like Tim Dillon's one was kind of disappointing.
Tim Dillon's one didn't translate, and I was so fucking shocked by that because I thought Timmy was the big hitter for comedy in like the last few years, big time.
Well, give it time. Maybe he'll. Do another one.
I mean, he's someone that clearly cares and knows, and I would imagine would only put the best thing of him out on Netflix, especially because he's a very ego-y guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe his peers and a lot of other Americans really liked it or something. I don't know. Maybe it didn't translate into Britain, but I felt like he personally, as a comedian, did not translate as well out of a podcast format to stand-up format at all. Yeah. I think him being able to rant on random topics in front of a microphone and that kind of setting, that kind of Rush Limbaugh piss take almost kind of vibe and character that he has going on. Is the funny bit, and to try and translate that into stand-up without actually just being a character, that is like Andrew Dice Clay or someone like that. You know what I mean? Like, you it would be like trying to do Daft Punk again. As a comedian, if you know what I mean. Like trying to just be like a whole character.
Yeah. But even then, I think it's all a dead meme, and to most younger people, a stand-up comedian is like a boomer thing. Like most young people. And then that's the reason why a lot of these comedians have transitioned to podcasting, because it's a way of staying in touch with the zeitgeist.
Most young people see it as probably like offensive, or people that say slurs.
Not even just that. They just don't find it as... No, not even just that. I don't think it's... For some young people it is that, but I think they just don't find it funny and they think it's silly. And they get more humor from memes and sketches and TikToks and stuff. I'm even starting to get that way. Like more, I'm like a zillennial. I'm a zillennial, so I'm like in between Zoomer and millennial because I just turned 30, so I have like some Zoomer tendencies, and one of my Zoomer tendencies is like getting most of my humor from memes and from TikTok and other social media kind of stuff. And like the more I do that, the more boomer like these comedians start to look. And I think it's going to be worse in successive generations.
Equals amounts of...
I don't think Gen Alpha is going to give a shit about stand-up comedy at all, or comedy films or whatever series. Like Skibbity Toilet is already an example of that.
I think that is tremendously sad, and it is a detriment to us as a culture. I think I genuinely
it's the
do.
End of civilization. Well,
Not that it's the end of civilization, but I feel like
when you were talking about your AI Scarlet Johansson GF, I said it was the end of civilization. Now all of a sudden you're saying
that's just natural progress.
Oh, is it now?
That's just natural progress.
Is it?
Anyone with a sane mind's going to want to get Scarlet Johansson as the AI GF.
Oh
it's
my
just
God.
it's going to make all the sense in the world. It's just natural progression. Okay, but they're talking about the death of comedy, something that's a little bit more ephemeral, a little bit more like
I think that I enjoy.
Ghostly. No, it's not. It's this thing that is way less. It's so much more subjective and like unquantifiable than something like natural technological progression. I'm not prepared for Stan Twitter influencers to try stand-up comedy.
It's gonna happen.
Well, I think that's kind of, I don't know.
It's on the horizon. If you can think of it, it's probably gonna happen.
I think that they see what they do as the best version of stand-up comedy already for someone like them. There's someone that probably doesn't make content and someone that doesn't go in front of a camera and someone that doesn't do any of that stuff. But they can write witty, quick, sharp, mean, cutting aphorisms in 120 characters or less. And so that makes it like, easy for them to compete in that way.
Yeah.
They don't have to stand in front of a crowd. They don't have to do any of those things that would be totally
Twitter
debilitating.
Twitter is a tough crowd, but in a different way. Especially if you're anonymous,
I think that, well, I guess the backlash you'd get from a bad joke is also kind of, it's still not really the same at all.
No, but it's like
bad,
if you do a tweet and it bombs, it can be like bombing at a stand-up comedy show in that sense. For somebody who's trying to get engagement for being funny, it's like, you get instant feedback of whether your humor is hitting, X, Y, Z.
Maybe.
So there are similar metrics, but for much less effort.
But it's for a very specific type of comedy.
Yeah.
That, I wouldn't see that as like you could write a bunch of jokes, actual jokes, on Twitter, and then use the engagement of those to see whether they were good or not, and then to include the ones that were good in a actual stand-up set.
Yeah. True. J. George says, what are they going to joke about, BTS members? Well, that will be the zeitgeist of the time, old timer. That's the thing that you guys don't understand, is that Zoomers are already starting to age out. You two will have to diminish into the West like us millennials. And you're going to have to deal with a generation who's totally inculcated in these cultures and these metrics and who don't know, a lot of things and who don't care about the artifacts of the 20th century and hold on to them as dearly as we do.
He's not young and he's not new in any way, but I have absolutely been loving Adam Ray's Dr. Phil bit that he's been doing for like the last probably 6 months, where he's been going on absolutely everybody's podcast as the character Dr. Phil.
Oh my God.
And I think it's hilarious. I think he's been absolutely killing it, and it's just so funny. I watch absolutely everything.
Should we make an AI Dr. Phil and have him be a guest on the podcast? That might be fun.
It would have to be I don't know, if you could tell him to be funny at the same time, because Dr. Phil as Dr. Phil isn't funny. But
yeah, he is.
Kind of.
He's literally like Mr. Garrison.
He's more, but he's kind of like, he's not very aware, I think, of why people find him funny.
No, that's why it's funny.
Yeah, but it's a different thing. What I'm talking, like the way Adam does it, I think it's a very specific
That's another thing. Now that you brought up Dr. Phil, that's another thing that's sort of taken the place of comedy in the culture, is like reality television. Which again is like a kind of sadistic laughter, once again, laughing at the expense of others.
Yeah, or
and at their misfortune,
or just general fucking, like,
or their stupidity, or their arrogance, or their narcissism. It's like putting people's worst traits on display and like having a laugh about it. I don't think it's an accident that in The Curse, it's a reality TV show, and like they're reality TV people. Like, it's one of the sleaziest.
That's true.
Sleaziest ways. And I think people, just like when the writer's strike happened back in 2000 and whatever, people retreated to reality TV because like there was no TV. I feel
Well,
like people are also retreating to like
it's gotten to the point now where they're
90 Day Fiance and stuff
where
because
they're
there's like no comedy.
luring people that message underage children out into public and then beating them up on stream.
Is that a streamer thing now?
Yeah.
So streamers are now trying to be Chris Hansen.
That's the new meta. That's the new
Oh
kick.
my God.
That's the new kick meta, is to
Oh my
basically
God.
like do the most confrontational thing you can possibly do in some even semi-legal fashion. I think like what would be considered how they treat these people, which are criminals, and what they do is totally wrong. I'm not like trying to fucking advocate for pedophiles or anything, but like they do just straight up assault them in the street and stuff.
Yeah.
And the only reason these guys don't report to the police and stuff is because these guys have text messages and all this stuff incriminating them for obvious crimes.
Like really,
and so they have essentially a free pass to beat the fuck out of these guys on stream, which is kind of pretty questionable. And like, I don't know.
And also at least Chris Hansen involved police and like got them
I don't
arrested.
think
these guys are just doing
they just
it
set them
for
free
beating
again.
them up.
And yeah, they just set them free again.
They're doing it for the clout. They're beating them up, and then they're like not doing anything to actually prevent the problem from happening.
Yeah, and a lot of, I don't know, I've seen a lot of them that are autistic and stuff as well. So it's just sort of like beating
It's
like
just messed up.
somewhat disabled people up on the internet, and people donating money and being like, this is wild.
It's really weird. I don't know. I feel like, the less comedy we have, the less healthy outlets for humor, the more sadistic we become. And that doesn't bode well in a time of war and tribal conflict and stuff.
Or my favorite example of the degeneracy of reality TV now, I think it has reached its peak at this point.
Yeah.
With MILF Manor.
Oh my God.
Have you seen what they've done for season 2?
I don't even know what this is. How do you know what this is?
Oh, dude, this is all over YouTube. I've been loving this. This is crazy. This is fucking hilarious.
What is MILF Manor?
So MILF Manor is like a dating reality show where they put all of the MILFs in a manor, and then they bring some young bucks in the house to try and impress the ladies. And all these ladies are like in their mid to late 40s or even like 50s, and all these boys are like sometimes as young as 19 or like in the early 20s. God, it's
so gross.
And the first season, it was just like them just like doing the thing, and they did all these challenges that were like super sexual with all these like old women like feeling up all these dudes and stuff. It was like really fucking cringe. And then in the season 2, they fucking turned it up a notch even further and brought the dads of those boys into the house.
What kind of Freudian fucking...
So that the women are now getting dated by both the dads and the sons.
Oh my God.
And they choose between the dads and the sons.
That's not actually real.
That is 100% real and is being broadcasted every week on that fucking Ratchet channel that did the 90 Day Fiancé thing.
Oh my God. No. That's so terrible.
Yeah.
What is the culture coming to?
I don't know anything about No Manor, but I do love MILF. George, that was exactly why I clicked on the video. And then and I realised that they weren't really that MILF. They were, and they were all like quite crazy, Barbie-looking, like 50-year-old women, and they all had serious problems. And the idea of it is actually a lot sexier than the reality. I think is kind of what that show drilled home to me.
Oh my God.
Is that if you're going to have a MILF, she's probably going to have a lot of the same concerns and problems in life that these ladies had, and that she probably would be as crazy as these ladies as well. And that those are not mutually exclusive. So BPD
MILF Manor.
Yeah, basically. I mean, you don't even need to include the BPD. MILF inherently, I feel like, it's just
oh my God. Anyway, that's enough for tonight. Thank you for peering into the cultural crystal ball with us. We hope you enjoyed yourself with us this evening. Also, don't forget to subscribe. No lurkers, please. If you're here and you're watching, subscribe. Also, leave likes, because that really helps us out. We're trying to grow, so the little things help a lot. Also, we're going to be watching Jodorowsky's The Dance of Reality this Sunday in our Discord, on Patreon. You're going to be back on Sunday, right?
By Sunday evening, I will be back, yeah.
Okay. He might be hungover, but he'll be there. So yeah, we're going to be watching Jodorowsky's Dance of Reality in the Patreon Discord for our movie club. So if you'd like to be there to have the discussion with us, join the Patreon Discord. And I'm still giving tarot readings. So if you join the tarot tier, you can get a tarot reading from me. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we will catch you again next week. Goodbye.